Standing alone on a dangerous rock at the entrance to Carlingford Lough, Haulbowline Lighthouse has guarded these waters for more than 200 years. To some, it's simply just a lighthouse off the coast of Carlingford, but to generations of sailors, coal captains, fishermen, and merchant crews, it was the difference between reaching port safely or a disaster at sea. This is the story of Haulbowline Lighthouse, sometimes known locally as Carlingford Lighthouse, and how it became one of the most important maritime landmarks on the east coast of Ireland. The entrance to Carlingford Lough has always been dangerous. Beneath the surface lies hidden rocks, shallow sandbanks, fast-moving tides, and narrow channels that could easily trap or wreck a ship. And right in the middle of those hazards sat the Haulbowline rocks. For centuries, sailors entering the lough faced enormous risks, especially during storms, fog, or darkness. As trade through Newry and Warrenpoint increased during the late 1700s, local merchants began demanding safer navigation into the lough. At the time, Newry was one of Ireland's busiest ports. Coal, timber, grain, and manufactured goods all passed through these waters. Without a reliable lighthouse, maritime trade and lives were constantly at risk. Before the lighthouse existed, there was an earlier lighthouse built at Carlingford Point in 1803, but there was a problem. Ship captains and merchants complained that the light was badly positioned and failed to properly guide vessels through the most dangerous parts of the channel. It simply wasn't enough. Over time, coastal erosion also weakened the ground beneath it. Eventually, parts of the coastline collapsed into the sea, and the original Carlingford Lighthouse was lost. A stronger, more effective solution was needed. That solution would become the Haulbowline Lighthouse. Construction of the lighthouse began in the early 1820s under the direction of engineer George Halpin. Building a lighthouse offshore in the 1820s was an incredible engineering challenge. The tower had to be built onto a semi-submerged rock surrounded by powerful currents and rough seas. Workers could only access the site during favourable tides and calm weather. Stones, equipment, and supplies all had to be transported by boat. Despite the difficulties, the lighthouse was completed in 1824. The finished tower stood approximately 34 metres high. Painted white and visible for miles around it, it became a critical navigation point for ships entering Carlingford Lough. One of the lighthouse's most important roles was guiding coal ships safely into the lough. Throughout the 19th and 20th century, coal was essential to everyday life. Homes were heated with it, factories depended on it, railways ran on it. Industry across Ulster needed constant coal deliveries. Large coalers, cargo ships carrying coal from Britain regularly crossed the Irish Sea before arriving at the mouth of Carlingford Lough. From there, captains had to carefully navigate past Haulbowline and continue towards narrow water. But timing was everything. A heavily loaded coal ship sat in the water could easily run aground if the tide was too low. That's why the lighthouse used more than just a beacon. The station also operated half-tide lighting signals and a black tide ball system during daylight hours. These signals told incoming captains when there was enough water depth to safely enter the channel. The lighthouse worked together with other navigation lights around the lough, including Green Island and Vital Bank leading lights, helping guide ships through the safest route inland. Without these systems, trade into Newry would have been far more dangerous and unreliable. Every ship travelling towards Newry eventually passed through narrow water. This narrow stretch of water acted like a gateway between the open lough and inland ports. For centuries, Newry's economy depended heavily on maritime trade, and every successful voyage depended on accurate navigation. Haulbowline became the first major checkpoint for vessels arriving in from the Irish Sea. Captains trusted the lighthouse to guide them through one of the most difficult coastal entrances in Ireland. In bad weather, the beam from Haulbowline could mean survival. Behind the lighthouse was a small group of men whose job was both dangerous and isolated, the lighthouse keepers. Before automation, keepers worked in rotating shifts maintaining the lantern, cleaning the equipment, monitoring weather conditions and operating fog signals. During storms, the sea could completely surround the tower with enormous waves. Supplying the lighthouse was often difficult. Keepers and supplies had to travel by boat from shore, usually from Greencastle or Cranfield. Winter months were especially harsh. Isolation, dangerous seas, and long periods away from family became part of everyday life. Yet despite the conditions, the light almost never failed. During both First and Second World Wars, the Irish Sea became a dangerous place. German U-boats operated in nearby waters. Merchant ships risked attack from submarines and naval mines. Despite the danger, shipping through Carlingford Lough continued. Coal, fuel supplies and industry cargo still had to reach ports like Warrenpoint and Newry. That made navigation aids like Haulbowline strategically important. Lighthouse keepers continued operating the station throughout wartime conditions, often during blackout restrictions and dangerous weather. Although the lighthouse itself was never a military fortress, it played a quiet but vital role in keeping maritime trade moving safely along the coast. In 1965, Haulbowline became one of the first major offshore lighthouses in Ireland to be automated. The age of permanent lighthouse keepers slowly came to an end. Technology replaced much of the manual work once carried out by crews living in isolation offshore. But even today, the lighthouse remains operational. Still standing against Atlantic storms and powerful tides, it continues to guide vessels entering Carlingford Lough just as it's done over the last 2 centuries. Haulbowline Lighthouse is more than a tower on a rock. It is part of the history of Carlingford Lough, Cranfield, Warrenpoint and Newry. For generations, it's protected sailors navigating dangerous waters. It's guided coal ships carrying the fuel that powered homes and industry. It stood watch through storms, economic change and 2 world wars. And today it remains one of the most recognisable maritime landmarks off the coast of Ulster. A silent guardian at the entrance to the lough, still doing the job it was built for in 1824. If you're enjoying this type of content, please consider subscribing, leave me a comment and like the video.